Hello, folks. It is Friday, which means it is Feels Friday, of course, and we are recording this on Thursday the 22nd, which means we are 1 month away, or just under 1 month away, from Exile Fest. So, things are going to start ramping up in terms of our advertising for the event, because on the 21st of June, 2025, we will be holding a Grimdark Future one-page rules tournament at Just Play Games here at Liverpool called Exile Fest. It's going to be awesome. I have to announce that entrance to the tournament on the day are now closed. We have 16 players, which is more than enough to do a mid-range tournament of this size. But please, if you want to, bring your army along. The army sizes for the event are rather small. We're only doing 2,000 points of Grimdark Future, one-page rules, which is a lot smaller than 40k, 2,000 points. So maybe bring your army along. There may be dropouts on the day, people who don't turn up, happens at every single event, and you could jump in. You may get a chance to jump in, and if not, you will at least get a chance to enter into the painting competition that will be on the day. And yes, there is a snazzy trophy for that painting competition. But if you want to come along and not play and just hang out with me, shoot the breeze and generally have a good time, maybe have a few beers later on with some meat and some food and stuff, then send your email to northernexileevents@gmail.com. That is northernexileevents@gmail.com, and let me know your name and contact number, just so I've got a brief idea of who is coming on the day and numbers and things. But we are a month away, so at least a few times a week now we'll be advertising this as we get closer to the day. So hopefully you can all come down to Liverpool and have a really good time. All right? Cool. It is Friday though, which means we're getting into some more hobby nightmares. Alrighty. So our first one comes from Pete. How's it going, man? And these, basically every one today is from Pete, because he has 3 ones, and the first 2 were really, really, really good. So I'm going to be reading them all out. Alright, so. Hobby Tales for an Exile Most Northern, he says. Greetings, Mr. North. I am Peter Morgan. Please feel free to call me Pete. I'm a long-time listener from the sunny country or county of Northumberland, and try to comment appropriately on all of your videos where I can. It is an absolute pleasure to finally have the time to write in and let you know what a great job you're doing, what a positive service you're performing in our community. Well done to you, sir. Well, thank you very much, mate. Thank you very much. So, a little backstory about myself, to help give you a frame of reference. I have been into the hobby since about 1994. I fell in love with the cardboard Space Orc Dreadnought and painted the rest of that 2nd edition box with all the skill and precision of an excited 10-year-old boy. The notion of 2 thin coats was never even a consideration at the time, of course. One thick coat, which obscured most of the model detail, was the order of the day. I've been into the hobby ever since, reading the lore, collecting and painting the models and playing the game. The current armies on the go for 40k are about 12 different Space Marine armies, an Eldar army, Tyranids, and Necrons. The 30k versions of the Alpha Legion, and some old world lizardmen. Of course, I have armies for most factions and systems over the long hobby years, and that have come and gone over the decades. During this time, I have seen and done a few things along the way. I would like to share a few of them, and the channel space that you have created and cultivated seems like the ideal arena for them. There are many tales I could tell, so I've added in a selection of 3 pretty tame ones, or not very tame, regardless on how you feel about them, below for you to read as you see fit. A hobby nightmare, a hobby crisis, and 1 hobby positivity story. I have tried to section out the text appropriately to make it easier to digest and giving it a quick proofread, but doubtless there will be some spelling mistakes and grammar errors along the way, so apologies in advance for them. With that all in mind, take a swig of Yorkshire tea, and I shall begin my first hobby chronicle. Alright, stopping there for a sec. This is the most ideal email I've gotten in a long time, right? It had a lovely preamble, so we know who we're talking to. It's Pete, and we know where he comes from. We know what kind of a guy he is, right? And he's sectioned off his hobby nightmares into 3 sections of really nicely written and also proofread stuff, right? Like, he has not made many mistakes in this. It's all really good. So this is the kind of thing I really like. One big bugbear of mine, and I've had to send a few emails today, and you know who you are because you'll be getting an email from me, is when people from previous Hobby Nightmares write a sequel to their Hobby Nightmare without telling us what happened last time. They jump straight in. Oh, and this happened next. And I'm like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. And if I don't know what you're talking about, the viewers will have next to no idea what the hell you're talking about. So if you are writing a sequel, always make sure you give us a preamble of what happened last time. And maybe if you're writing a new Hobby Nightmare, give us an introduction to yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? Kind of a thing. We've now got a picture on our heads of who Peter Morgan is. And let's jump into his first story, which is the said Hobby Nightmare. So, the Shouting Neckbeard is number 1. And take a quick sip of tea. Alright. Back in 2016, I was working away from home in the Lincoln area for a few months. Lincoln itself is a nice enough place which housed a perfectly suitable little Games Workshop store that I would occasionally pop into and check out new releases and generally peruse what was going on with the hobby. I was doing a reasonably intense and long-term course for work at the time and didn't have many friends in the area that were into the hobby. There was a very nice chap on the course with me who I will call Joel. As the course went on, Joel and I chatted more and became quite good friends. One afternoon, I dropped a comment that I was into the hobby, and it nudged a little interest out of him. After taking him to Games Workshop in the town, he said it was cool, and he'd like learning about it all, quote unquote, but wasn't really interested in doing it himself. Fair enough, I thought. At least I have somebody to talk to about it now. A week or so later, and we had an unexpectedly swift end to the week. We had a whole extra day off course. Joel and I were chatting about how we could spend our extra time. Naturally, we were going to go out drinking in the evening, but we were struggling to fill the day. Joel unexpectedly suggested, "Hey, why don't I drive us up to Nottingham to that Warhammer World place you mentioned?" I was surprised by his offer, but he explained that whilst he still didn't want to partake in the hobby, he was very interested by it all and wanted to go and see the heart of it. I said, "Absolutely, dude," and we were off. Dude, this is lovely. This is nice. I'm almost dreading it all going wrong. Joel is a very cool dude. He loves going for random adventures and learning about stuff on day trips, and I was very curious to see what he would think about the hobby mecca. I had been there on several occasions before, and always had a really good and fun time. I hoped that the experience might lead him into not just to buying a model, then to at least try a game of it. After all, if you're only going to play once, playing at Warhammer World would be a pretty cool place to have played it, even if it was 7th edition rules. Just over an hour later, we had parked up, and Joel seemed quite impressed by the exterior of the place. With its statues and general appearance, he said it looked pretty cool, and we went inside. There was a tournament or something on at the time, and the main hall had that main hall buzz about it. Those who have been there when all the games are in full swing will know what I'm talking about. Again, Joel seemed suitably impressed with the interior. We strolled around for a bit before I headed into the Forge World, RIP, store for a quick look and to pick up some pieces. Joel was looking at all of the awesome resin models with a curiosity in his eyes that said, "Oh, go on then, I'll give it a go." Dude, like, if this guy's going to Warhammer World saying he's not going to do the hobby, that's like the worst place. You take him around that diorama once. Like, dude, nah, man. Not the exhibition hall, sorry. Not the diorama. You know what I mean? There's dioramas in there. We were soon headed into the general Games Workshop store area at the back of the hall for him to have an intro game on one of the fantastic boards in there. As we left the Forge World booth, we both glanced at the closest game going on to us, which was at the bottom corner of the main hall. It was being played between a very small-looking young lad, to my eyes looked about 13 or 14, and an absolute meme of a fat, greasy neckbeard virgin wearing a black t-shirt, which I am sure was probably white when it was new. Not great at guessing age, but I reckon he was in his late 20s. I should also mention at this point that the table next to them was not in use for that round. Anyway, Joel and let me just got something caught in my throat. There we go. Anyway, as Joel and I strolled round the corner, I noticed that the above mentioned were having a discussion mid-battle, and that with every step we took, the big old neckbeard was getting more and more animated and infuriated. A few paces more, and Fatty McBeardo was shouting down aggressively at this kid, and I could see the kid was very uncomfortable with the situation. Now, I am normally not one for getting involved in other people's business. It is usually always a bad idea to go storming into a scenario based upon a small snippet of what you've seen. You just never know the circumstances and can make a bit of a tit of yourself and or make things worse. I agree. I absolutely agree. I once punched somebody in the face in the lobby of a theatre because he was being arsist. You know what that word is. I'm not sure I can say it on YouTube. And acting violent and aggressive to a young lady. It rapidly transpired that these two were in fact members of the cast performing a scene in the lobby as part of the director's attempts to innovate his production by breaking down the barriers between his play and the audience. No, man. Dude, that's worth the whole nightmare. I want to hear about that. That's so funny. The thing is, though, like, you're just going to be like, well, don't do it. That's their fault. It's their fault, man. You can't. That's not your fault. As you can imagine, there is a lot more to that story that will go in here. Maybe some other time. Yeah, please do. Send that in, man. Send that in. It's not a hobby nightmare, but I've got to read that out. That's brilliant. I love it. Just clubbing this guy. And she's like, oh my god. I just like beating him. I'll show you what for. There's nothing better than when you think you're the hero and you're not. Like, there's one time in London. Dude, I still cringe about this to this day, right? This is what happens. You get them out. You get these hobby nightmares out of me. This wasn't even a hobby nightmare, but, you know. Anyway. I'm sitting on the London Underground, and I'm seeing this, looking around, you know, as you do. Being a northerner, I look around. I'm not, like, looking at the floor like all the Londoners. So I'm looking around, and I see this luggage. You know, the wheeled luggage that you get with the handle on it, the retractable handle. It's a pink one of those. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm looking around the carriage, and I see this thing, and oh, yeah, fair enough, whatever. And I'm glancing around, and there's this guy there, and I can only describe him as being... shifty, right? And he wasn't shifty because of his race, right? Because he did look like he was from the Middle East, right? He was shifty because of his behaviour. Like, he was looking around, you know, acting like jumpy, you know. And we come to a station. The doors open, right? And just before the doors close, he dives up and grabs this pink luggage and goes to dive out the door with it. And without thinking, I jump up and I grab the other end. I'm like, nah, mate, you're not stealing this. You can sling your hook, mate. You know, don't say nothing to him. Anyway, he just looks at me, and he looks kind of sheepish, like, oh, okay, you know, and lets it go. And the doors close, right? And I stand it up there, and I look around going, whose is this? Sorry, somebody tried to steal it. And nobody answers. They're all looking at me like horrified. I'm like, sorry, whose is this? And this woman says, oh, I think that was his. Like, did you not think to warn me when I was like wrestling with it? Like, did you not think to just say anything? Like, just, oh, anyway. So I sat down and I was just mortified. I was like, oh no. And then I got off the train. And I reported it to the guard. I said, look, you know, this happened. Really sorry. Like, you know, I don't even know if it's his. I still don't think it's his. Right? I think he tried to nick it, but it's on that train now anyway. You know what I mean? And he said, yeah. You know, I know the train it's on, so I'll tell a guard at the next station to get it off and to get it off the train. And if he wants it, he can come back for it. And whatever station he goes to, we'll know. You know what I mean? And I said, all right, fair enough, no problem. So I never found out what happened to that luggage, or if it was actually his or not. But the fact that nobody else warned me, if they saw him get on that train with that bag, and then he saw me try and stop him getting off the train with it, like, but it was super dodgy, man. I'm sticking up for myself here. I know it seems like I've just accosted accosted an immigrant or something. I swear to God, it looked really dodgy. It looked really dodgy, man. Honestly. Anyway, then I beat him to death. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, moving on. That being said, I also absolutely hate bullies, or people using their size or position to intimidate people, and this situation gave me such a bad vibe, I felt I just had to intervene. I'm also 6'3" and an active amateur boxer and bodybuilder at the time. Dude, alright, yeah, you're everyone's worst nightmare. I took a step towards the table, Now, I don't know whether Beardy Chubbs saw me coming over and decided to bail, or if he had just reached a natural conclusion to his furious tantrum, but by my second step, he threw up his arms and just did an about turn. He left the table and walked away in the direction of Bugman's bar. I got to the table and spoke to the kid. I asked him, do you know that guy? Which he said, no. I had thought that maybe he had been a big brother or other relation that he'd been drawn against. Unlikely, but unlikely things do happen. Anyway, he'd never met the dude before, and he seemed quite shook up and upset. By this time, Joel had followed me over, and I guess the kid felt some kind of sense of friendly protection around him with us being there. I asked him why the schlobby beard man had been so agitated, and the kid said, and I quote, I haven't really been playing that long, and I just didn't understand the rule properly, and he kept on trying to explain it to me, but I just didn't get it. Unquote. It was my suspicion at the time that Stinky Lord Lardarse was trying to cheat this kid, and that the kid was not accepting it out of confusion rather than defiance. After a couple of minutes, there was no sign of angry Glut reappearing, so Joel and I helped the kid pack away his army. Turns out his dad was playing at another table across the hall, so we got him to take us to the table his dad was at, and we handed him off and explained what had transpired. His dad naturally seemed quite dismayed at what had happened, and his dad's opponent was totally understanding of the situation and instantly offered a draw for the battle, which was readily accepted with a handshake. With my brief part in this incident concluded, I suggested to Joel that we go directly for a pint and a bite to eat in Bugman's. We're only halfway through the nightmare, by the way, so other things are going to go on. During this meal, Joel said that he had seen all he needed to and didn't really fancy the game after all. Oh no. Ah, that sucks, man. That sucks. I never saw the engorged, oily, bearded man again, and to this day I still don't know if the kid's dad confronted him or if the tournament organisers got involved. All I know is that when Joel and I left, his models and gaming gear were gone from the table they'd been placed on, and that the table was now blank. We got into the car and drove back to Lincoln. Dude, he definitely saw you coming over. He saw you coming over. He went to hide in the bar, right? Maybe in the toilet at the back. Okay. And then, when the coast was clear, he came out, got his army, and left. I'm telling you now. Joel and I remain friends to this day. However, he has still never played a game of Warhammer. I dwelt upon this incident for a while. As with a lot of hobbyists, I am a bit of an overthinker. Now, I don't know whether if Joel had played that one game, he would have picked up the hobby, but at least he would have given it a go. But that one member of the community and his actions were enough to put him off, not only from the hobby, but also all of his interest in learning anything more about it. In his mind, it is a hobby where grown-ups end up shouting at kids to win a game of bloody toy soldiers. Joel also admits that this is unfair of him to judge an entire hobby community on based on one bad display. However, as he puts it, and I quote, if I got food poisoning from a restaurant, I wouldn't assume that everybody eating there is going to get food poisoning, and that the restaurant staff were trying to poison me, but I know that is not the case. But I just don't want to eat there again, because I can still remember how bad it made me feel chunking up that meal. Unquote. I think his point is valid. Yeah, it is. It is. It sucks, but yeah, he does have a valid point. A more than valid point. You know, I've got a mate who doesn't like Thai food, right? He says it's too fragranty. And I'm just like, dude, have you ever tried like the curries I eat, which are not like that at all? No, but I had Thai food once and I really hated it, and now I don't eat Thai food. I was like, all right, cool. But it is what it is. I have also spent a bit of time thinking about the shouting Neckbeard. I know I have not painted him out as in a pleasant light during this tale, and quite frankly, rightly so in my opinion. However, the more I thought about it, the more I felt kind of sorry for him, and all those like him. To be at a point in life where you feel the need you have to lie and be aggressive with a child in order to bully your way into winning a war game with toy soldiers is very sad. For all I know, he never had any hobby chads around him to guide him. He may not even have had a father in his life at all. He might just have had a really, really, really bad day. Lost his job, and his house burnt down. I will never know. Though if any of those things had happened to me, attending a Warhammer event wouldn't have been high on my list of priorities, to say it mildly. Critically though, Those bad things may have happened, which could have explained his actions, but they still do not excuse his actions, and I'll always believe that I did the right thing by walking over there to get involved, even though it meant Joel never having played the game again after that. I pass this story onto you, North, for commentary, observations, and notes. Well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, I've already given my notes during it, and I want to read out the second of your hobby nightmares, so we'll get into that in a minute. But, you know, I can kind of see it, man. I can definitely see it. It's a shame. Do you know what a good way to do it is to play a game at home with your friend. You know, that might be a way to do it. But if he's not interested in it, he's not interested in it. So don't force it on him. Alrighty. Number 2 is the Crisis, the new recruit. A fairly recent one, this, but it had me thinking about it ever since. Approximately 3 months ago, February 2025, I embarked upon a new army project, a brand new Samhain Eldar force. I still refuse to call them Eldari, yeah, because they're not, they're Eldar. Yeah, Samhain are the bikers, yeah, the red bikers, yeah. I picked up a copy of Awake the Dead when the box was released in 2018, and I'd slowly been working to build up my Craftworld pile of shame ever since. I had reached the point where I could begin to actually get started on the army, thanks in no small part to being able to pick up plenty of cheap kits on eBay due to them being in the Combat Patrol magazine. I have to say that the updated models are lovely. Anyway, I live in the northeast and I usually use eBay/Vinted to get my models and hobby stuffs. I will also use the classic list of UK-based third-party retailers for when I really want something specific. I try and use the Games Workshop web store as little as possible because of the price difference. It is also common sense. Why in the hell would I pay more? Why would anybody pay more? Pretty much the only exception to this is with the paints, and only very rarely. I didn't have all the paints I needed for the Eldar project, and I couldn't get all of them from one online retailer due to different paints being out of stock from different third-party online stores. It didn't make any sense to have to get the paints I needed piecemeal from multiple stores and to have to pay the additional separate postage and packaging, as only getting a couple of paints from each would not reach the threshold for free postage. This sounds reasonable so far. All the paints I needed were in stock on the Games Workshop web store, and I had them waiting in my basket. I just hadn't pushed the button yet. It wasn't that urgent. I had plenty of clipping, filing, mould line removal and assembly to be getting on with for the last week or so. Bottom line, I kind of hate having to use the Games Workshop web store, but sometimes needs must. However, I do have a massive amount of nostalgia for how physical Games Workshop stores used to be. Living where I did, it was a rare treat to be able to go into a physical store whilst growing up to pick things up. Oh, how they used to be. I would spend hours in there just looking. I would pick up and inspect what felt like endless books and boxes and all manner of hobby items, and the staff were amazing. Kinda crazy, of course, but amazing. They'd be running in-store games that you would get dragged into, and they all really knew how to bring the game, nay, the universes of Warhammer, to life. I never had huge amounts of money to spend in there, but the staff would always do their best to make one-off deals for me, so I could normally get most out of what I was after. They were great days. Oh North, please forgive my sprinting down this nostalgic arc. It's alright, man. Quick sip of brew, and back to the Crisis. I was sat at my hobby desk at home, clipping some Guardians out of their sprues. You know, just generally being relaxed and happy, when my wife came into the room. She wanted us to go to the huge shopping centre about an hour or so away. I pondered briefly, and then agreed. Because she is my wife, and when she's excited to go to Lakeland and look at new kitchen gadgets, I support that. She does a lot of cake baking and decorating, and she really is a bloody good person. She supports my plastic toy soldiers, so I support her sprinkles and icing. It works, yeah, and you get to eat all the cakes as well. You know. Thing is, though, like, if your missus wants to do something, in general, if it means leaving the house, go do it, right? Just get out of the house. Go walk around. Do something with the day, you know? I love doing things like this because it, like, kind of... It gets me out of my comfort zone and I'm doing something new. You know what I mean? It's just nice. The shopping centre in question also has a Games Workshop store, and I was in need of my paints. I would hopefully be able to kill 2 birds with one trip, make the wife happy, and grab all the paints I would need to get my current project to completion in one fell swoop. I have to admit, even at the ripe old age of 40, I still do get a touch of excitement at the thought of going into the physical store. It is a nice place to pick up the occasional paint or to have a look on the shelves to see what novels they have on the day. It is also nice to have a general meander around the store and look at things, even if the atmosphere in the stores these days is akin to a dentist's waiting room. Sigh, they should never have banned in-store gaming. I agree. But, as I've said before, I get why they did. You know, it's sometimes you're not getting the clientele that you want by having in-store games, but I still think it's more than worth it. You know, a lot more than worth it. Anyway, I had my exact colour scheme worked out for how I was going to paint my Eldar, courtesy of the scheme used in Mediocre Hobbies channel YouTube video on how to speed paint the Simhan colours. I am not affiliated to this channel in any way, so feel free to not mention his channel. I don't know how you feel about giving shoutouts. I don't mind. I don't care. You know. So, we arrived at the shopping centre, and my wife quickly disappeared into a world of spatulas and mixers, etc. I had a leisurely walk into the Games Workshop store. I also refuse to call them Warhammer stores. Oh my god. You're one of those golden oldies. The store was empty as I entered, apart from a couple of staff members. One sat down, painting some terrain, and one just looking at something on one of the shelves. The shelf starter... The shelf starter? The shelf stacker, I think you mean to say, yeah? The shelf... That slipped through the net. The shelf stacker immediately clocked me, smiled, and approached me. He proceeded to give me the classic intro lines. Did he put his hand in his pocket and start gyrating his hips? No. Hey there, how are you doing? Are you working on any projects at the moment? Haha, etc. I was perfectly courteous to him and let him know that I was absolutely happy just sorting myself out and having a look around in peace. This was cemented in his mind after his last question. So, how long have you been into the hobby? My answer of, since about 1994, seemed to surprise him, and then he replied, that's longer than I've been alive. I gave a wry smile, and he left me alone. That's... You know what? That's quite a good interaction for a Games Workshop staff. He's giving you a bit of a ribbing there. That's good. I like that. That's cheeky. I like that. That's cool. It's funny. I can't lie, I was tempted to transform into the back in my day stereotype. Fortunately, though, I thought better of it. He then disappeared off from the shop floor to go back into the back rooms. When you say the back rooms, do you mean like the meme back rooms? I think that's where all Games Workshop staffers go. They disappear into this, like, you know, or the entire other dimension. Anyway. I was about midway through looking at the books they had on the novel shelf when another customer walked in. The remaining staff member, who hadn't even looked up when I walked into the store, stood up from behind his painting bench and shot into action. I had a glance around, Now, this new customer was, well, they were an advert for the modern left. You mean politically, okay. Very overweight, face full of piercings, low quality tattoos visible on the neck, hair was half shaven, and the other half a faded blue. Don't hate me for the next part, but I did detect a high level of neurodiversity about them. I met a couple of people in my time, and I try my absolute best not to judge people based on how they look, but sometimes it is really, really, really hard not to. I couldn't really say for certain about their gender, so I'll just refer to them from here on in as blue. Okay. So, the now standing staff member went straight into his hard sell, and I moved away to carry on my browsing. Time went on, and I was very much lost in my own little world as I arrived at the paints and hobby section. At this time, I could almost hear the ongoing conversation between the staff member and Blue. With a quick look about, I saw that Blue was holding a Combat Patrol Space Wolves box. Games Workshop price £100. And that the staff member was in full new recruit mode. As I turned back around to grab a couple more pots of paint from my Eldar, they moved over right next to me to pick out an undercoat spray can. a hobby starter box, the one with the paints and tools in, a few more individual paints and brushes, before moving over to pick up a 10th edition introductory box. But he wasn't done yet. The staff member also added a 10th edition core rules book to Blue's pile. Dude, that's a bit shitty. When you're selling the rules for free, that's a bit shitty. Do you know what I mean? Adding the 10th edition rule book, that you know he doesn't need it. You know this Blue person does not need that. Number one, if you're getting the big starter box set, there's a book that comes in there that gives you all the rules you need. You don't need the standalone rule book. Like, that's a shitty thing to do. I stood there thinking away to myself, Jesus, Blue has just been pinged for like £200 worth of product. I then heard the other staff member say, yep, that's great. That should give you all you need to get started. Let me bring all over to the till, and we can get you sorted. I quickly grabbed the rest of my paints I needed, and decided to get into the queue quickly behind Blue, just to see the grand total pop up on the till. It rang up to just north of £250. I was kind of shocked. To me, at least, £250 is a lot of money. In that moment, I had a little bit of a tug on my conscience. I heard it saying to me, Pete, after Blue has left the store, go outside with them and start up a friendly chat and see if they understand exactly how much money they have just spent, and if they're even aware of the fact that they could have gotten everything online for about 20% cheaper and even earned some account points, as a lot of third-party retailers have such schemes. That was what my conscience said. My brain said, Pete, keep out of it, son. It's nothing to do with you. I'd go with you. I'd go with your brain, mate. Yeah. It's not your business. Do you know what I'm saying? Sorry, I had to take a sip of tea there. It's not your business. You know, like, my philosophy when I was selling models. So I had a few people come in who had certain issues with disability, and they would get a lot of money from the government. So these are people with not a lot of time on their hands and a lot of money on their hands. And they would come in, and I'm going to be honest, sometimes they would drop like £600, £700. Now, to me, in a one-man store, that is a lot of money. You know, that's like half the money, well, maybe a quarter of the money I should be bringing in a week. You know, that's a lot. So, I'm thinking, yeah, that this is great, but you don't want to farm that person, right? And I'm ashamed to admit that there were a few times when I would give that person more attention than other people because I knew that I would get money from them. Like they would be able to pay like a lot more than other customers. So I'd give them a bit more of my time. Especially if I was having a bad week. Like if I was having a low week in terms of sales, dude, those people, like all I had to do was like talk to them about the hobby for a bit, and they would go over and they would be buying like £400, £500 worth of stuff, you know. And they were like, yeah, you know, I've all rooms of this stuff, because they got so much money they don't know what to do with it. You know what I mean? They got, yeah, I've got rooms of this stuff, and it doesn't bother me. But I want this because one day I'm going to be painting it and building it and stuff, you know. So I would cultivate relationships that would make more money for the store, and I'm ashamed of that. I shouldn't have done that. You know, everyone should have gotten the same look in with the manager as the big spenders. But again, running a one-man store, running your own business where your job's on the line, there's some things you just got to do, I suppose. But it still makes me feel bad thinking about it. But yeah, you are incentivized to do this kind of thing. What you are not incentivized to do is sell your customers things that they don't want or need, right? You're not incentivized to do that. And if I know of a few trainers who would do this, right? But if you are a Games Workshop manager, do not do that. Do not sell customers models they don't need, because you know what they need when they come in, right? Listen to what they want and give them the best value and best box sets for what they want. Do not listen to them wanting to get into Space Wolves and then sell them Dark Imperium, the combat, you know, or whatever the equivalent is these days. I'll just call it Dark Imperium. Don't sell them the big starter box set and then sell them the combat patrol, then sell them all the paints, then sell them all the brush and all that kind of stuff, and then sell them a standalone rule book when the rule book or a version of it comes with the set they're buying in the first place, right? Don't throw redundancies into what they're buying, because you're milking that person once. They're going to realize they've been done. Especially, you know, other hobbyists will tell them. Pete came very close here to doing it. Other hobbyists will tell, why'd you get the rule book as well? The rule book comes in the box set. then they'll be like, yeah, fuck that store. Or they'll come in and they'll go, yeah, I'm returning this. I don't need it. And you're a dickhead for selling it to me. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen. Right? They come in really pissed. Luckily, never happened to me. But they come in really pissed. Dude, I didn't need this. I'm returning it. You're a dickhead for selling it to me. It happened, right, with the Imperial Agents Codex. Okay? Because my manager sold loads of these thinking he was so fucking clever at the end of 7th edition. Knowing that, you know, there's not going to be one in 8th. There probably isn't going to be. And even if there is one in 8th, it's going to come in a few years' time. There wasn't one in the end, but it's going to come in a few years' time. So he thought he's getting rid of all these things. He's getting money for old rope. The amount of people who came in and returned those as soon as 8th was announced. You know, I saw him sell dozens of these things, man. And dozens came back in. It became a running joke in the store. Like, we were returning so many of them. And all those returns come out of your daily take, by the way. Right? There was one day in that store, and this is a really busy store, where he prides himself on making so much money from his customers. For the first day ever in years, he was minus. Right? He'd sold hundreds of pounds worth of product, and he was still minus. So many people came in with the Imperial Agents models, and especially the Codex, saying, yeah, that £30 you sold me on, yeah, I want a refund, right? Like 8 or 9 people in one day, man. You know. What a dick. Don't do it. It will come back to haunt you. Don't sell your customers things they don't need. Especially in a hobby that's this expensive. It's not right. You know? Anyway. Carrying on. I would never, ever interrupt a staff member mid-sale to say something like that, as I believe that would be a bit of a dick move. Yeah, it would be. Yeah, the guy's doing his job, but he still shouldn't be selling them, you know, things they don't need. Anyway. I heard Blue speak for the first time clearly at this point. Blue asked, do you have any bags? The staff member said, no, I'm afraid we don't do plastic bags anymore, but you can have one of these Warhammer tote carry bags. It's a bag for life. Without hesitation, Blue said, oh, yes, please. To which the staff member added, that'll be an extra £2. This guy's a prick. Dude, this is... Okay, I'm gonna give you, Pete, special dispensation. This is where you step in, my friend. This is where you step in. This way, mate, can you not just give him a free bag? He spent all this money. Like, are you serious? Just chuck in a free bag. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And by the way, since we're here, does he really need that rule book? It comes in the main box set. That's what you do. Right? The guy's crossed the line now. That's what you do. If you don't want to be a dick about it, that's what you do. Say, mate, you just gonna... Can't you just give him a free bag, man? He spent about 250 quid. Also, does he really need that rule book? It comes in that box set, doesn't it? Right? You throw him under the bus. If he's being this much of a prick, you throw him under the bus. I'm sorry, I go back on what I just said. Up until this point, yeah, mind your business. Because maybe the staff member doesn't even know that that box set, you know, comes with the rule book in it. It's a low chance, but you don't know what you're walking into, as you just said before, right? When you're walking over to the Neckbeard guy. But I'm telling you now, he does know, because you're trying to nickel and dime the guy out of another £2 for a fucking bag. A bag. To carry his £250 worth of stuff in it. He knows what's in that box set. He knows. He's had this guy hook, line, and sinker. He's pulled the wool right over his eyes. He's seen him coming a mile off, is what we say in the UK, right? Carrying on. The arsehole couldn't even chuck in a free bag after a spend like that. Ran instantly through my mind. Blue responded again with a simple, okay, no problem. And the staff member handed her the bag, making no attempt to put their purchases in the bag for them. That is... My God. That is poor customer service wherever you work. Blue then handed over their bank card, and the deed was done. £250+ had been sunk straight into the hobby. I had decided to go with my conscience and talk to them outside, right up until the staff member said goodbye to them with a, thank you very much, and welcome back to the hobby. Back. Welcome back to the hobby. The simple addition of this word threw my conscious decision to speak to them into immediate doubt. I stood motionless like a frozen idiot for several seconds, attempting to process this information. Welcome back. My mind rattled. That meant that Blue wasn't a new recruit at all, but a returning hobbyist. Blue may well have known all about the third-party web stores and their associated discounts, but just didn't care, because they wanted to use the Games Workshop store in order to start or rekindle a friendly relationship with the store and its staff. Blue may as well have thought me a condescending twat for assuming they didn't know any of those things. By the time I had processed these things, Blue was long gone out of the store and down the street, which was good news, as I had decided not to initiate any form of conversation. My brain had prevailed over my heart. I then paid for my paints and left. I still ponder whether I did the right thing. I think I did, but it still itches me every now and again. Should I have tried to at least have had a word with them? Would that be classed as white knighting or something? Regardless of the above, the staff member was definitely a bit of a prick for not at least chucking in a free bag or making Blue pack it themselves. Maybe that is just how Games Workshop is now. Do you know what, North? I think I've changed my mind about something. I am going to call them Warhammer stores from now on, because the Games Workshop stores that I knew when I was young are long gone and would never have done something like this. What do you think, North? Cheers. Okay, I'm not going to read the last one, because we've been here for a while already. But I absolutely agree. I'll read the last one, which is a feel-good story, next Friday for you, Pete. All right, mate? I have to say, like, yeah, this guy was a bit of a prick. I'm not gonna lie. Like, this is yeah. I mean, I would feel bad on the train home for some of the amount of money I would get from customers. Sometimes I'd feel bad, but like not like this. This is a real piece of work, dude. I was giving you shit away for free because I didn't give a monkey's rat's ass about about the models. You know, like if you came into my store and you were a really good customer, I'd give you a free white dwarf. I didn't give a fuck. Like, there you go. But if you were struggling, right? I'd have people coming to the store and they'd be like, you know, they'd be painting away and they're gonna go and they're saying, look, when I get paid, I'm gonna get a new paintbrush, right? You know, I'm a student, I'm struggling, but I'm gonna get a paintbrush at the end of the month. It's my main thing. The amount of times I'd hear that. Leave it for a while, just to make sure they weren't trying to get a pity party out of me. And I'd say, I'd known lost it, the one that I knew they wanted. I'll go over, put it next to them and say, don't say anything to anybody, but that's between me and you. That's for you. Thanks for coming to the store, right? Because who gives a fuck? It's a paintbrush. We have millions of them, right? Who gives a fuck? Now, I know you'll say, well, that's alright, North, but what if every manager does that? What if every manager wasn't doing that? I was. So... simple, right? And I've now got that customer for life. They would always come back, right? They would always come back. I did it in the store as well. If my manager listens to this, no, I gave away your stock for free, mate. Right? All the time. Nothing big. But if a kid came in and really, really, really loved their introduction, you know, and I knew their mum wasn't very well off or the dad wasn't very well off, right? There's one single dad who came in who was like, you know, going through court and all sorts, trying to get custody of his kid. And, you know, he was at his end of his tether. That kid got a free white dwarf, a pot of paint, and a brush, right? You know, it just... because they enjoyed... well, he enjoyed his introduction, you know? And I was happy to do it. And the manager wasn't there, so fuck it. I'm giving those things away. Those things mean more, you know, to the hobby store, to the Games Workshop, than selling stuff. At least it should. The Games Workshop should be the introduction space. It should be the space where happy memories are created. It shouldn't be the place to nickel and dime customers. You make far more money mail order, online, and through your third-party retailers than you do in your Games Workshop stores. So why do you instruct your staff to nickel and dime people, to cheat people like this? I don't get it. I never will. That's why I left. So, or was asked to leave, or, you know, whatever. You know, well, I wasn't asked to leave. My contract ran out and I wasn't renewed. I said, oh, apply for your own job again, please. Alrighty. You know, that kind of a thing. Anyway. God, bloody years ago now. How long ago was that now? Nearly bloody decade ago. My God. Anyway, I love you all a long time. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'll speak to you over the weekend where we're going to be doing some more streams. So have a good one. Bye now.